What's up, everybody, and welcome to Growing Up Gaming, your weekly podcast where we meet a new person of the internet to discuss their childhood with gaming and how it inspired their lives today. My name is Mitch Power. Again, thank you guys so much for returning each and every week to the show. Hope you're subscribing there on iTunes or Google Play, or you're checking us out on Spotify or YouTube, which if you're looking at any of the methods there, I greatly appreciate it. This week on the show, we have our guest. His name is Xander Skullion. I met this gentleman on Twitter with the help of the one post that I did that I seem to help get all my guests from lately. So he was nice enough to share his time with me and discuss some of the cool things that influenced him in gaming. If you guys want to be on the show just like he was, go ahead and send me a tweet at MitchPower1116 on Twitter, or at the podcast Twitter page, which is at GUG Podcast on Twitter. Without further ado, let's get things started with Xander Skullion. Do you remember what initially got you started playing games? Was it a family member? Was it a friend? Was it some awesome magazine you saw at a store? Like, what got you started?
So, yeah, what got me into video games actually was my grandpa. My grandpa was a huge gamer. He had an Atari 2600. It was actually the Sears model. And I remember...
I like the Sears model. Like, I like that.
Yeah.
That's like, you know, like back now we have limited edition consoles. Nope, that's the Sears one.
Yeah, it was. I think it was like one of those like Sears models that played like Commodore or like maybe it played some Intel. Yeah, it was like Intellivision and 2600, and he would always play it. And every time I'd go to his house, I'd play it. I remember my mom would work during the day, and I would go and visit my grandpa, and we'd watch Bozo the Clown and play Missile Command. And it was, like, so freaking awesome. So, I mean, my grandpa was the one who got me into video games. He was the one that got me my NES during Christmas. He got me my Super Nintendo. I mean, pretty much all through my life, like, when it came to video games, it was because of my grandpa. A matter of fact, and I mean, this sounds kind of sad, but it was kind of cool at the same time. During his like last days, because he passed away from cancer. I actually brought over one of those like Atari flashbacks, and we sat there and played Missile Command and ate pizza.
Nice,
like that was just like such a good like send off, you know? Right. So yeah, I mean that was what got me into it was my grandpa. Like he was huge gamer.
That's really cool. I mean, and so hold on. So when what year were you born?
I was born in 85.
Okay. So yeah, you're about the same age as me. I was 86. So like, it's cool though, cause I mean, at the time, so your grandpa definitely was an older guy at the time, but he was fully into games. Like, you know, I've talked to some people who, you know, when they were born around the same time, 85, 86, whatever, their parents were into games, you know, like, cause they had played Atari and all that stuff. But it's cool that your grandpa, you know, like the next generation after that, you know what I mean? Or the previous generation, I should say,
yeah,
was into gaming as much. So, but yeah, like my grandma was as well. Like, it's funny cause my grandpa wasn't, but my grandma was. Like, it was really funny.
It was really funny sometimes too, because, you know, you'd have those nights where all the parents would play cards while you go to sleep. Like everyone would like be playing like Rummy or something.
Right.
I remember it got to the point where they were all playing Super Mario Brothers.
Nice.
And I would get up in the morning and they'd have a piece of paper with their names written and high scores. Like it's so weird. Thinking that they were playing Mario with high scores.
Nice. Yeah. Well, again, like how do you judge Mario otherwise? Like, you know, now it's like, there's time, you know, like the what is it, the speed runs and all that stuff that they have, and then there's, you know, how quickly can, you know, there's all these weird challenges. But yeah, like it's funny to forget that Mario actually had a score. Like there was actually a score for getting coins and killing people. Like, and of course, if you knew that trick with the shell on the stairs, you could completely break that score. But yeah, that's fine. Who cares? That's the one. I remember that being the one trick that was in like a magazine at one point in time. It's like how to get unlimited lives in Mario. This is before Game Genie just made it way too easy to do that. It's just like, just do this and just sit there and jump on the turtle shell and have it hit back. And the only problem was like having to hit it just right. You had to hit it like perfectly for that thing to come back at you, but you can get unlimited lives. And you know, it's a lot of people. I know a lot of people that attempted to do it. I think I did it like one time successfully, but also for the most part, you didn't really need too many lives to get through Mario either.
Yeah, my grandpa was a huge troll too, like because I don't know if you remember this, but in the original Mario, player 1 was the only person that could actually pause the game.
Why?
Like player 2 couldn't pause. So I would always try to be player 1 because if he was player 1, he would time it right when I jump over like a pitfall. He would pause the game in mid jump and like unpause it, so I would die, and he'd just like be laughing at me and get me so angry. He thought it was hilarious.
Imagine him being on the like. I was gonna say, imagine if he had stuck around longer, he could have been like the troll in like an MMO, just like Leroy Jenkins. Like he was the first.
Oh
Leroy
my god,
Jenkins.
yeah. He would totally be that person. He was just he would just get major pleasure out of just making everyone's life a living hell playing a video game sometimes.
He was the first troll like of his generation. He was just that asshole that was just like messing with everybody. But no, I mean like I mean I think it's fun to do that to people you like and care about, but like the thing is you just don't do it to random people on the internet because that's where you're an asshole. But if you're just messing around with people you care about, that's where it's fun, man. I mean, it's funny because just messing with your friends and just doing things wrong in games. My son will ask me because the way I talk to my friends is horrendous. Like I say some awful things to my friends, and my son will hear me. He goes, "Is that how you talk to your friends?" I'm like, "This is mildly how I talk to my friends when you're around." Like I say far worse things to my friends when you're not around. And he's just like, again, maybe it's his generation. Like everybody's just nice to each other, and like I'm like, no, my generation, we talked a lot of shit to each other when we were friends. So, but again, that's how you knew I love you if I'm messing with you and talking about your shit.
Yeah, tough love, yeah.
Exactly, that's how it is. I also like how you said, like, the Sears model, like, and it worked with 2 systems. Imagine if GameStop today was like, we have our GameStop model of a console that works with Xbox and PlayStation, like, how fucking fast they'd be sued.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Like, it's so funny thinking, like, back then there was, like, hardly no copyright laws whatsoever. It was just, like, anyone could make a 2600.
Yeah, it was like the Wild West. It's just like, can you just take a 2600 apart and put it in whatever device that they had and everything. Like, I remember there was so many weird, this is way back, like, obviously it's not like this now, because, again, Microsoft and Sony would sue the shit out of you if you try this. I mean, obviously there's, like, people that do their own mods, like Ben Heck or whatever, like, he does his own, like, turns an Xbox into a laptop, like that type of shit, right? Which is cool, but also it's not being sold to anybody, right? He's just making it for himself, which is really cool. But there's like, I remember like one of my grandma's friends had an RV that had a 64 built into like the entertainment center of the RV. Like,
oh my gosh,
it was weird. Like, it was really weird, but like it had control ports for the 64, like in the seat area where the TV area was separate. Like, it was the craziest shit I've ever seen. And again, there's like, I've seen things where there's GameCubes built into like DVD players and stuff. Like, there's just, and again, these were things that were sold to people. And
yeah, kind of like those laser discs.
Right. Like,
remember they come on those laser discs with the modules for like PC Engine or Sega CD or something,
Right. Yeah. I remember there was, I mean, this I know for sure was a thing, which I was so blown away by. Like, when I was younger, when Sega's Genesis had like 700 versions of their system, right? Like, I had the old school one, like the old one that had the headphone slider that nobody fucking used, like, at all. Like, no one saw that and went, sweet, I have a headphone slider on my console. Like, nobody thought that. And I think that's why Sega got rid of it fast, because nobody gave a shit about it. But, obviously there was like so many varieties of Sega CD and 32X and like all these things that came out. But my brother-in-law showed me like this thing called the CDX, which was literally, it was like the size of a portable, like, it's like a portable CD player. It's like a little bit thicker, but
I used to have one actually. Those
things fully played everything. And I was like, this is the coolest shit I've ever seen. It was like CD, Sega Genesis, and it was so small in comparison to everything else that was out there. Like, it literally did, so it didn't do 32X, like, you still had to have that ridiculous thing to plug it in, but like, it was so awesome. And I didn't even know that thing existed until I went to his house, and I was like, dude, what is this? And he's like, it's a CDX. And I'm like, again, I don't remember that version of it at all, but there's all these crazy different varieties of consoles out there.
What I really like about the CDX is when you put the 32X add-on, it looks like a derpy Star Destroyer.
I'm literally looking up pictures right now. I have to look this up. Oh my God. And it's still, it does look like, it looks like a failed Star Wars ship.
Yeah.
Like it looks real bad. It looks like before they actually, it looks like the base model of a Star Wars ship before they added details.
It's the Sears model. That's what it is.
It's the Sears model. That's what it is. It's that Sears model 32X. But I mean, dude, that looks terrible. That looks horrendous because the 32X is like wider than the base console.
Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah, that looks real bad. But I mean, there's all these like weird varieties of consoles that were ever out there. But yeah, I remember, I want to say there was a TV that had a Nintendo built in. I'm almost positive that was the case.
Oh, yeah.
But I've mentioned on the show before, if there was ever a tube TV that had anything built in, it worked one time and then never worked again. I don't know a single person who had a TV VCR combo where the VCR worked right, ever. Like, ever. Like, it seemed that shit worked 3 times and then just 8 tapes and never worked again, and then you just used it as a TV. But no, I remember there was all these like weird different varieties of consoles, but I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, again, like your grandpa obviously was playing the Atari rather than the Intellivision, which was probably the better choice, but to be honest, I didn't get much into stuff until Nintendo happened. And when Nintendo happened, I was full. My grandma had an Atari 2600 in the basement and I never had it hooked up. Because Nintendo was out. I was like, why do I need Atari 2600? I have Mario. Like, I don't need that.
Yeah, that's kind of how I am. Like, I grew up playing his Atari 2600, but I fell more in love with video games when I got my Nintendo. Like, that's when I was like, fuck, I love video games.
Right.
You know, because like I liked playing Missile Command and Asteroids and, you know, River Raid or whatever. I liked playing little stuff like that, and it was like fun, but playing something like Mario or Castlevania just blew my mind. Like, they didn't even feel like video games at that moment, you know?
Right. I mean, and that's the other thing, like when you mentioned like your grandpa being into it and stuff, like my grandma was also into it as well, but my grandpa never was. Like my grandpa was into like 3 things: horse track betting, the Atlanta Braves, and taking naps. Like those 3 things were his fucking jam. Like if those 3 things were happening, he was the happiest person in the world. But like my grandma, when I had my Nintendo, my grandma was playing the hell out of it, dude. Like now again, I'm a dumb kid, but she was playing like Tetris and Dr. Mario. She wasn't really playing like Mario Brothers and stuff like that. But dude, the way she played those games made me think she was a genius. I'm like, you're just doing so well. And again, I'm a stupid kid. I'm not realizing like setting up moves, you know, like in Tetris, you set up to get Tetrises, not just like one line at a time. Like she was doing all this, you know, all these things, and I'm just looking at her like, oh my God, you're amazing. In reality, I'm like, no, I'm just a stupid kid. I'm not playing this game right. Dr. Mario, she'd set up the pills to fall when one got done. Like, she was doing way better at those games than I was, but that was the only game she got into. At least your grandpa did other games.
Oh, yeah. That, you know, that makes me think of when we talk about older people with gaming, it makes me think when I worked at Babbage's back in like 2005. And we had this one older lady that had always come in, and she was a huge JRPG fan. Like, she loved JRPGs. And I remember one time she came in when I first met her, and she was buying Final Fantasy 12. And I'm like, oh, yeah, you know, because it had just came out. And I was like, you know, giving it to her and stuff. And I was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure, you know, your grandchildren are going to love this game. She was like, it's for me.
I was like, you assumed.
I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, you know, she's like, I just finished Dragon Quest 8 and now I want to play Final Fantasy 12. I'm like, holy shit. You know, she was like telling me all about these JRPGs. She started out back in the Super Nintendo. She's like, yeah, I played like Secret of Mana, and they're like books, but you can interact with them. I'm like, oh, wow, really? It was crazy.
I think we grew up right next to each other because I worked at Game Crazy, and I had an old lady, same deal, dude. She would come in. But the cool, like, this old lady would come in, and again, I made that assumption. I'm like, man, your grandkids are going to love this. And she kind of looked at me like, bitch, these are for me. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, no, these are mine. And then when I found out she played, but like she would come in and she would she would buy the game, but she would also buy the strategy guide. Okay. Every single game that, like, it was, again, it was a lot of JRPGs, but like she would come in, buy the game, buy the guide, and be cool, right? And then she did that for a ton of games, and it was always more like the story-based games. You know, obviously she didn't come in buying Madden, but she was like coming in buying all the story games. And then literally when she was done, she would come trade them in. They were in pristine, perfect condition, like you just opened them. She would bring in the strategy guide, pristine, perfect condition. Even though we didn't take the strategy guide, she's like, "Oh no, it's okay. You guys can have it." Like, she was so nice, and I was just
God.
I was like, "Wow, lady, you're like super cool." And again, she would come in, like, again, it wasn't during the sports stuff, and I mean, she didn't buy certain games, but if it was like a good story-based game, like I said, back then though, it was mostly JRPGs, like that PS2 era JRPGs. She was blasting through like every one of them. And again, man, like, I hope I get to that point where I'm retired and I don't have shit to do besides play games. Like, I mean, that would be a dream. And that was literally the dream she was living. She was like, "No, I don't do shit. I go home and I can play 80 hours of a game and have nothing else to do." And I'm just like, good for you, lady.
Isn't that crazy to like think here we are, like, being such big fans of gamers, like being such big gamers, and we're like fantasizing that when we retire, maybe we can actually play Persona 5.
Right, because you're doing that shit when you have a job.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I love the Switch. That's why I love the Switch so much, because you know, a lot of times, because I work 2 jobs, and one of my jobs I work at, I don't do a whole lot. So I always bring my Switch, because I'm like, hey, if I'm playing a game like, say, Octopath Traveler or something like that, or like Ys 8, I can play it on my Switch, and I feel so much more accomplished. And I mean, that's why I'm kind of salty that Dragon Quest 11 hasn't came out to Switch yet. Because I was like, man, I really want to get on Switch. Like, I know graphically it may not be as good, it may not be as shiny, but I get a busy life, man. And I love JRPGs, but it's a genre that I can't enjoy as much as I used to, you know?
Yeah, because I've mentioned before that, like, there was a certain era of gaming where, like, how long a game was how good it was, right? Like,
yeah,
like, oh, this game is 3 discs or 4 discs. You're like, holy shit, man, that game is long. Like, that's an awesome game. And like, that was a big deal back then. And now it's just like, if a game's that long, I dread it just because I have a job and responsibilities, and, you know, I do so much, and I'm just like, I don't have time to play these games. So if I find out a game's like 8 to 10 hours, I'm like, fuck yeah, let's go. Like, I could beat this. I feel like I could accomplish something. Yeah, if I find out a game's like The Witcher 3, such an amazing game. As soon as I realized how big it was, I had to stop. I'm like, I can't do this. Like, I cannot spend every waking moment I have available to play gaming doing this game. And I'm not saying it's not worth it or great, but I just want to, like, be able to play and feel like I'm beating something every once in a while, not just playing one game that long. So yeah, I mean, and I'm right there with you. I have a job where at times it is slow. I work from home. So right next to me is my everything, my 4K, my Xbox One X, like everything I have. So there are times where I get to play things here and there. The Switch, I don't appreciate the portable aspect of, just because I work from home. Like, I'm right here.
Yeah.
The portable aspect of it, I feel, is amazing. I have rarely gotten a chance to really do it. When I've gone traveling, my kids love it. I'm like, hey, you know, they have Mario Kart and they can play it wherever. And I got this little, stand, this little like tablet holder that goes between the car seats, so it holds the Switch like in the middle of the seats, so they can play it and everything. But yeah, like I like, my sister-in-law was actually asking about like what to get her kid for Christmas. She's like, do I get a PS4 or Xbox? I'm like, well, it just depends. And she's like, well, what about for kids? I'm like, oh, Switch. And she's like, what? Like, it's a no-brainer. Like, that thing literally plays the console quality games on the go, and it does it well for the most part. You know, very rare are games like bad in handheld mode and good in, you know, like docked mode or whatever. Like, I'm like, no, that's an amazing console, especially if you can go places with it. It's awesome.
Yeah, think about how, like, good kids have it these days. Like, here we are now, the old people, because, like, I think about it and I'm like, man, kids have it so great. They have the Switch, you know, they have some of these awesome tablet games. Like, I'm not a big mobile guy, but some of the stuff I see my nephew playing, like, even the tablet games, they almost look like PS2 quality gaming, like graphic wise. And I'm like remembering back when I had like my Game Boy, and if I was on a road trip at night, forget about it. I won't be able to play my Game Boy.
Right. Unless you caught that right light on the street lights.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless you had the magnifier light on your thing. Yeah, you weren't getting anything.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I love the portability of the Switch. Like, that's just one of the things that I dig about it. And I mean, like the new Pokemon, that's what I liked about the new Pokemon. It's like, it's so much more casual. And it's just like one of those games I could play for like, I seriously played the game the other day for like 6 hours.
Nice.
Played it like 6 hours straight. And then I put it down and didn't play it for like 2 days, and I picked it right back up. And it's just like, it's funny because I'll talk to some people like, oh, it's so casual, so simplistic. And I'm like, keep going.
Yeah. You haven't said anything bad yet. Like, are you going to get to the part where you say something bad about the game? Yeah, that's the one thing actually that drew me away for. Like, obviously I'm assuming you played Pokemon when you're younger.
Oh yeah.
Like Pokemon's still, like, I played, I think it was X and Y. Like, my son's really big into it. So X and Y, like, I started playing the newer ones, and there's just so much shit going on now.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. There's just a lot of shit going on. And I'm like, hey, remember when half this shit wasn't a thing? Like, remember when it was just the core game and like, I think Gold and Silver, I think were like my favorites just because that's when it didn't get crazy, but that was when they did the like day and night cycles, and I was like, this is cool. So like at night you have to play to catch certain ones, and at day, like that was the part I thought that was cool. Otherwise, like all this other shit that's happening now in the games, I'm not saying it's bad, but it's just like, it's getting to the point where it's like, that's a lot of shit going on. Like, that's a lot of new things going on. And
that's what Let's Go, like Pokemon Let's Go, that's what's so fabulous about it. It goes back to the roots.
I haven't even given it a chance because I was scared. I was scared it was going to be like almost too casual, but then I started seeing gameplay of it and I'm like, damn, that actually reminds me of like Red and Blue times. Like, that reminds me of that kind of back in the day. The catching part of it is super Pokemon Go-esque. Like, it 100% is, with, throwing the ball and stuff. But still, I was like, this is kind of cool. I, maybe should check this out. But then there's so many other games. Like, there's just so much shit out.
True.
So I was going to say, did you, as far as it goes, like, were you kind of mentioned it earlier, how you had Nintendo and then you had Super Nintendo, you had a Game Boy and all that. Were you kind of like big into Nintendo as far as franchises and all that goes?
I was, it's really funny was I got a lot of Nintendo stuff when I was younger, but I always like had the back of my head, I always wanted to dive into Sega. And mainly a lot of that was the like Sonic the Hedgehog cartoon. Like I used to watch both Saturday morning cartoons. So they had two of them at the time. They had one that was like really slapstick humor, and then he had one that was based off the Archie comics that was actually kind of dark. I mean, rest in peace, Uncle Chuck. But so I was always like, man, I really want to get a Sega. And I'd always ask for one. I didn't end up getting a Sega Genesis until like, I want to say like 93, 94. And I was like, as I've gotten older, I've become a bigger Sega fan than Nintendo fan. Like, I don't know what it is. It's almost like, I guess you don't know what you got until it's gone. Sega isn't around like it used to be.
Right.
Like console wise. They still make really great games, obviously. Like, I love the Yakuza series. That's like one of my favorites of all time. But I was much more into Sega, or I'm sorry, Nintendo, for the longest time.
And I think it just depends on the environment you're in, because, like me, for example, I was more into Sega only because a lot of my friends were into Sega as well. Like, did you have that group of buddies in school where they were all about their Super Nintendo, or did you ever have friends that had a Genesis, so you had a way to like kind of experience both?
Yeah, and it always like, I don't know, it always kind of made me jealous sometimes, because they'd be talking about like Toe Jam and Earl, and I'd be like, well, I I got this, Nintendo game, and
right.
I don't know, like Sega always seemed to be a little bit more mature and just a little bit more like, just more badass. As I got older, I'm like, man, that's so cool.
Yeah. Like, I think that was also Sega's marketing, because they were all like edgy and hip, and they had all this, flashy moves and commercials and whatever. Like Nintendo, the only thing that makes me sad is like Nintendo, as far as it goes back then. I had a Genesis. I loved it to death. The problem is if you look back, there's some games that are cool, but if you go back and look at like how many good games were on Genesis compared to Super Nintendo, like when that SNES Classic came out, I didn't buy it, but I could not deny that was a ridiculously stellar lineup of games. I was like,
oh yeah,
holy shit. Like, you guys. And again, they did it right. They went and got the third party licenses for, like all the Square games. Like, they didn't fuck around. Like, that SNES Classic is amazing. Like, it's such a good compilation of games. And then you go to like the Sega Genesis and like and what sucks is like the Genesis Classics have been out for a long time. And just,
they really have, yeah.
And no one gives a shit. Like, no one seems to care as much about that. And there's some out there that even play the Genesis games. Like, if you have the old Genesis games, they work with the classic. Like, it's so crazy.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, when people go back and they look at it, they're like, that's not, that set of games isn't as good. And it's kind of sad, but no, I'm looking at the SNES classic games and I'm just like, holy shit, those are a bunch of just ridiculously good games.
Well, I have a funny memory about what I was saying earlier when I finally got a Sega Genesis. It came with the Genesis 6-pack, which was like six Genesis games on one cartridge. That completely blew my mind. I was like, no way. There's no way there's like 6 games on this one cartridge. I thought maybe it was like almost like a cereal box prize where it'd be like one of the games would be in there, and it'd be like, which one is it? I'm like,
it's like a mystery. Like, which one did you get?
I was like, I hope it's like Columns. Please don't be Columns, because I don't
want Columns. It's 4 Columns.
I don't want that to be my first game.
Right.
But now, I find out that it's got all of them on there, and I do have a soft spot now for Columns. But yeah, I was just like, no way, this is so cool. But it's funny because those 6 games are still like the 6 games that people look up to when they think of the Genesis. They think of like, Sonic the Hedgehog, Revenge of Shinobi, Golden Axe, Streets of Rage, Super Hang On. Like, those are like the classic titles,
Right. Yeah, and shout out to like multi-disc or multi-game packs, I should say, because that was a really good one. Like, I will say, it's still it's hard to say though the best. And I'm not even like a Genesis, like a Super Nintendo fan, but like Super Mario World plus Mario All-Stars. Like,
oh yeah,
holy shit! Like, that's insanity that you put that on one cart. But no, that Genesis 6-pack. I still think back then though, Genesis was trying more things. Unfortunately, some of them didn't work. But like, they had a lot more risks that they were trying. Obviously, they were trying their like transforming console with the Sega CD and 32X. But like things like Sega Sonic and Knuckles, how you could put Sonic 3 on Sonic and Knuckles and play Knuckles in Sonic 3 levels, which is crazy as shit. Like,
yeah,
that's insanity to think about. Like they figured the way to do that, and like that's basically DLC for Sonic 3, but it's just nuts that they figured out, and they were trying those types of things, whereas Nintendo was just kind of like, they had games that were good, but they weren't trying a lot of new things like that, whereas Sega was really trying to hope that some of those would catch on.
What was really weird is it took me a long time to even figure out that Sonic and Knuckles was a standalone game. I thought it was just an add-on that you were supposed to put in the Sonic 3 or Sonic 2 to play as Knuckles. Then one day I just like powered it on without putting the game on top of it, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is also a game? What? What is this?
I missed out. What did I do? No, I mean, like I said, I had a Genesis. The only thing with like Genesis, I think the one thing that hampered it was like depending on the genre you were into. Like example, RPGs. Dude, Super Nintendo was like the machine if you liked RPGs. And again, I didn't even experience RPGs until PlayStation really, because on Genesis it was more like I had all the Sega franchises, like I had your Sonic, I had dude, all the different types of games they were trying, like Vector Man, Comic Zone, all those like exclusive, and then there was like Jurassic Park. I want to say I thought there was an exclusive Jurassic Park for Genesis, but that might not be true. Like there was a mature rated like Jurassic Park game that had come out for it, which was nuts. It was like Rampage Edition, I think, and it was like you played as the raptor, but it was like it was like I remember just if it was like exclusive to Genesis, I was like down. I was like, yes, this is how I want to play these games. Of course, I played Mortal Kombat and I played NBA Jam and like all those types of games. But I mean, again, like I missed out on a whole genre of RPGs just because like Genesis didn't really have them.
I mean, they had a couple. I mean, you had like Phantasy Star and Shining Force and stuff like that. But I mean, in Genesis, like I don't know, it's like almost like the Genesis was just trying to capture that arcade feel more than anything,
right?
Which I guess makes sense because I mean they were an arcade company first,
right?
You know, so.
No, that completely makes sense. And I mean, also I like how they tried to make certain games happen. Like they tried to do things like Virtual Fighter was like, and like Daytona, like there was like those like almost next gen arcade games that they tried to make happen on Genesis and just didn't work as well. But still, I mean, they did try a lot of different things. I remember, obviously there's ridiculous accessories like the Power Glove, but then there was like that ring you put on the ground for like fighting games that you could try, and like, I don't know, man, there was a lot of just weird stuff. I was all about the Sonic games though. Like Sonic Spinball was awesome, which again, it's just a pinball game, but Sonic was in it, man. It was super cool.
Oh, yeah.
And then, I like how like in that game, he was a ball until he landed flat, and then he could like get up and just walk. He's like, I'm just gonna walk around to these things.
It had a great soundtrack too. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like I personally like a lot of the Genesis stuff that was out there, but again, the only problem is you look back now and it's just like, actually, like Super Nintendo had a lot of really, really good games. Like, it's funny to think though that they tried Virtual Fighter. Like they tried that on a Genesis and it just wasn't close to the arcade game, but they were trying all sorts of stuff back then. But yeah, I'm trying to look back now and you're right. Like Shining Force, Phantasy Star, that was about it as far as it goes with like the RPGs on Genesis. Like those were like the big ones, I should say.
Yeah. I mean, even when you look at the indie market now, where the whole like retro, kind of renaissance with indie games, a lot of the indie games tried to model themselves either over a NES game or a SNES game. Like you don't see a whole lot of indie games that you play and you're like, man, this feels like a Sega Genesis title.
Yeah, like not too much, unfortunately. Like that's the only part that sucks is that, but here's the other thing I've always mentioned too, is that going back and looking at things like them, like all those, like you were talking about the indie games going after that retro feel, you always look at, and they always go for that 8-bit or 16-bit. No one's trying to make a 32-bit, like the PlayStation era classic games, because dude, those games don't translate as well. But yeah, you're right though. Like example, look at Shovel Knight. Shovel Knight is completely copying like Mega Man. It's completely copying DuckTales. Like just all those old school type of games, but some games like Shovel Knight do a really good job because that game is awesome. Like I played that game and immediately felt like I was back playing an old school Nintendo game.
Yeah, another indie title that I just cannot recommend enough that I just absolutely loved was Owlboy. Owlboy, like it feels like here's the thing, like some of these indie games, like they take that retroness and it feels almost like they're like, if the game's not that great, it's okay because they're trying to be retro.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
No, that makes sense.
Where Owlboy, like it feels like a long lost retro game. Like it feels like a game that was made back in like the late 90s and like the cusp of the SNES era. Like they were about to come out with the N64 because the graphics and everything are really good. And it was like, it was stored away and we finally found the game. We're playing it now. Like it feels like it's trapped in that moment in time.
What's funny is somehow I completely missed this game. Like, and it might be because if I look, I don't think it came out on Xbox. It looks like it's PS4 and Switch. I primarily play on Xbox. I have all of the above, but I primarily play on Xbox, so that might have been a reason why I may not have seen as much of it. But I'm looking at screenshots now, and you're right. It looks like a super late Super Nintendo game because of just the quality of the graphics and stuff. Like, yeah, this game looks really cool.
It's so good.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to.
It's like one of the it's one of those games that like I recommend to so many people. And you ever had this feeling too that when you play a game and you love it so much, and you recommend it to your friends, and they're kind of like, "Oh yeah, check it out," and they just kind of push it aside. You're like, no, stop pushing it. Go play that fucking game right now. And then they finally play it, and then they start trying to tell you how awesome it is. Like, man, I've been playing this game. It's so amazing. You could do this and do that. I'm like, dude, I've been trying to tell you this for like 6 months now.
Yeah, that happens. Like, because there's certain games that get recommended, and I'm just like, whatever. But no, I get what you're saying. When you have to, like, no, you're not listening. You think I'm bullshitting you right now. You just like, the only problem is like some of the games that I like love to death, I recommend to people they have played and they just shit on it. I'm like, hey guys, I really like Gears of War, and they're like, how the fuck can you like that game? I'm like, I don't know what you mean. Like, it's a really good game. No, very rarely. I haven't, like most of the crowd that, I talk to as far as games go are very into gaming, which is really nice because some people will recommend games to me and I go back and like this Owlboy game looks awesome. And I honestly did not hear about it. Like it was one of those games that just because I was probably looking at something else, dude, it came out like November of 2016. Shit, it came out 2 years ago. Like, you know how many games I've looked into in the last 2 years that aren't this? But no, I mean, that looks awesome, and I definitely want to check it out now because those older style... Like, I played Shovel Knight, and I was in love with it. A lot of people recommended Axiom Verge. I never got a chance to play it. Like, there's a lot of games out there that look really cool and just haven't gotten a chance to play it. But thankfully, hopefully it'll be on a sale or something, and check that out. But that's the other thing, too. Some of those older games... especially Nintendo games, do not drop in price ever.
Oh yeah,
ever. Like, dude, there are games that are probably on the Wii that are still $60 right now, and they don't give a fuck. They're like, nope, this is a $60 game forever. So that's the other thing too is the Nintendo, Super Nintendo stuff held its value so well, whereas the Genesis stuff was like, certain Genesis games are worth quite a bit, but a lot of that Genesis stuff is just like. Yeah, you want to buy this for like $1? Sure, why not? Like, it's a really good game.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because I remember before they closed, I would go into Kmart. And I always joke to my friends, I'm like, I go into Kmart and I feel like I'm in like a time capsule. I go in there and it's like, I'd go in there and I'd feel like 2002 all over again. And like while I'm saying that, I would go to electronics and I'd pull like a perfectly factory sealed copy of New Super Mario Brothers on the DS, but the first New Super Mario Brothers for like $35. I'm like, dude, here we are, 2015. This game's still $30.
Right.
It is 2002 right now.
Yeah, like, dude, especially as you mentioned Kmart, dude. That was exactly like I felt bad for those stores, man, because like you go into some of those stores and you're like, I understand why you're closing. Like, you obviously weren't able to keep up with the times as well. But, like, yeah, you still run across that game. Like, somebody put a picture online of, like, a Walmart or something that still had some, like, PlayStation 2 games sealed. And I was like, geez, like, you're telling me that couldn't have gone to, you couldn't have sent that back to corporate so they could have shipped it out appropriately? Like, you guys are still hanging on to, like, a PS... And I'm sure that's a Walmart in the middle of nowhere. Like, I'm sure they don't get any traffic at all. But it's just funny to see that there's those types of stores that happen to be like that. And it's the same thing, certain stores I go into, like local game stores. I guess it just depends on the type of, I'm not going to say the type of game store, but like obviously some of these like local game stores focus more on retro and classic consoles rather than the new stuff. So you go in there and you see like standees from like Mario 3. And you're just like, man, this is crazy. I haven't seen this in forever. And it almost seems like a museum rather than a store. And you're like, oh, wait, you could actually buy these things. That's cool. But yeah, I mean, it just depends on the stores you head into. It's welcome to the internet. I buy a lot of stuff digitally. Sorry. Like, it just makes it easier. So then as you were progressing, did you go the 64 route or did you kind of skip the 64 and go PlayStation like everybody else did? Like, what did you end up doing going forward?
You know, it was funny because at first I wanted N64. You know, because I remember playing Mario 64 at like the Walmart kiosk, and I'm like, holy shit, Mario can punch people. This is awesome.
He can no more jumping on heads. He can walk up and slap somebody.
Yeah, I was like, he can backflip and he can punch people in the face. I want this game. And then I played the Sega Saturn at a Sears. I was playing Mortal Kombat 3, and I'm like, holy shit, it's like I'm playing the arcade. This is awesome. Until I got in the fight with Shang Tsung, and it was like it stopped. I'm like, what's wrong? Oh, it's loading. Okay. Oh, okay. Now he's Katana. Okay, cool. So then I went to Saturn, and then it got to the point where I finally settled and got a PlayStation. And I think after looking at all three consoles, I mean, I think I picked the wise choice on that one.
Right.
I mean, I wish I had a nice Saturn collection, because I ended up getting the Saturn way later on, and Saturn's just so freaking expensive now, you know.
It's weird because it's like there's a fine line between selling not enough consoles to the point where it's like discontinued and gone, and either it being really cheap or really expensive. Like it's a weird line, and I don't know what makes it that. Like, what determines the fact that this console is so expensive, even though it didn't sell to the point where they had to close it out? You know what I mean? Like, it's just weird that happens.
Yeah, because I mean, the Saturn, like it really didn't do well over here.
No, I don't know a single person that owned one.
Yeah, it's like it didn't sell well, but it's like, you know, sometimes you get back in the older consoles and you're like, okay, well, cool, I'm going to buy this older console, and the games are going to be dirt cheap. And that didn't happen with this Saturn. It was just kind of like, okay, cool, I got a Saturn. All right, the cheapest game is like $15.
Yeah, you're like, what the hell? Like,
exactly.
Like, I could buy PS4 games right now that are less than $15 that are far better. Like, what are we doing right now? Like, and again, that it happens like that, but it's just, I don't know what that switch is. Like, what makes it worth more rather than being reduced down to the point where they just try to get rid of them.
Yeah.
Well, like, but Dreamcast, when that happened, like when Dreamcast happened, they fire sold those consoles fast. They were like, no, get rid of them. And they dropped the price fast, and they got rid of them as quick as they could when they were going out. But, you know, Saturn, dude, I really do not know one person. I know, obviously, later in life, I know people that owned a Saturn, but like at the time, I didn't know a single person that did.
I think the reason why Saturn games have like held up their value is mainly because a lot of Saturn games are harder to emulate. I think that's what it is.
That could be it.
Because I know, like, you think of Panzer Dragoon Saga, Sega lost the code for that game. That's the reason why we haven't had a remaster or a remake of Panzer Dragoon Saga. It's because they lost the code to make the game. So luckily fans have tried their best, and there's ROMs and ISOs of Panzer Dragoon Saga. It's not perfect, but it's about as close as we're going to get unless you want to drop the price of a used car. You know? It's
yeah,
like,
to go find that game and that I mean, the console probably isn't that, but the game is, game's going to be really expensive.
Yeah, because what's funny is, like, Saturns, like, the consoles themselves aren't that expensive. I mean, I've seen Saturns out in the wild for, like, and this is at, like, retail stores for, like, $45, $50. I'm like, okay. I mean, it is what it is. But then the games get so much more expensive. And I think it's just because it's so much harder to emulate. Where you look at something like N64 or PlayStation, the emulations, especially PlayStation, emulations gotten so far ahead of its time that the PlayStation 1 games are just, they can't give them away. Like, they're so cheap right now, you know?
Right. I think it's also saturation, because when you have a console, like, when you have a console that sells 100 million systems and how many games are with it, I think it's just oversaturation too, because again, there's that fine line between bad, but it's rare, so it's worth more money, or if it's a good game and it's rare, it's worth even more money, to the point where there's 10,000 copies of Crash Bandicoot in one store. Like, they're going to sell it for like $1 just to try to push it and get it out of there. But you're also right, though, too, when it comes to the emulation side of things, because now there's some emulators out there that run games better than the original console did. Like,
oh yeah,
there's that like Wii emulator out there that runs games in like 1080 and like all this upscaling and shit, and you're just like, dude, the system barely did 720, and this thing is like running Wii games better than the original console did. Like, Mario Galaxy on that emulator looks apparently ridiculous. Like, it looks so good. And now, like I said though, but like some of those, also too, some people get weird about the controller, because like, yeah, you can basically hook up an Xbox controller and use that for all emulators if you'd like to. But, you know, especially with Sega, how they had the 6-button configuration, you know, like, you know, like it wasn't just 4 in a, like a diamond shape like that. It was 6 buttons. So some people just want that feel of playing it on the old console and on an old TV, not an HD TV that stretches it out or makes it look funny.
Yeah, it's like my my Wii U. I have a modded Wii U actually that plays it plays ISOs for like GameCube, Wii, N64, and Wii U as well. Like, it's pretty much just an emulation box at this point. And what's nice
might
about
be the best
it,
use for a Wii U.
Yeah, I mean, what's the coolest thing about it is I can use the Wii U Pro controller for GameCube games. So I'm like, I got this wonderful wireless controller that's not a Wavebird. But if you do have a Wavebird, or if you have some GameCube controllers, you can use the GameCube controller adapter, the 4-player adapter, on the Wii U to play GameCube games. So if you want 4-player Melee, boom, you got it.
So that's amazing.
Yeah, it's, oh, dude, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I like that. By the way, shout out to the Wii U Pro controller, because literally that thing's awesome. Like, that thing is, and also too, I can't stress enough how much better the Switch Pro controller is compared to the actual Joy-Cons. I'm sorry, my own personal opinion, those Joy-Cons are trash. I hate them.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I hate them so, like, they're just not, they feel like third-party controllers. Like, they don't feel right. Like, they feel bad, and I'm just like, ugh. And then the funny thing is, for me with the Switch, most of my Switch gaming experience has been when the system's docked. Like, because again, I don't travel much, you know what I mean? But if I'm sitting there, you're going to bet your ass I'm not playing with those Joy-Cons in that grip. I'm like, no, go get me a Pro controller. And it's funny because my son's gotten to the point where I showed him the Pro controller and he's just like, Dad, this controller's way better. I'm like, yo, yeah, absolutely. I've seen him have the Switch on the floor, kickstand open, Joy-Con still attached, but playing with a Pro controller instead on the floor. He's like, I'm like, you're really just going to prop it on the floor and play with the Pro controller? He's like, yeah, this controller's up far better, Dad. I'm like,
dude, I do. He's right that I do that. Matter of fact, I just recently, my co-host on my podcast bought me one of those Hori Joy-Cons with the D-pads. He bought that for me. So now when I take my Switch traveling, I have that hooked in, so I don't take my Pro controller with me anymore. But I would always take my Pro controller with me and put in kickstand mode, because I'd be wanting to play like Street Fighter Online. And I'm like, you can't play Street Fighter with that Joy-Con controller. It's impossible. Like, those 4 buttons as a D-pad, it can't happen. So, I mean, like, I would just use the Pro controller all the time, and I love that controller. And I tell anybody who buys a Switch, I'm like, yo, just invest a little bit of extra money, because so many people, they act like it's so expensive. They're like, oh, it's $70. I'm like, just save the money and buy it. It's such a great investment. It's got a long battery life, and the controller is just amazing. Like, it's a total game changer, all pun intended.
The craziest thing about the Pro controller to me is it literally, the one thing I hate about the DualShock, for example, is the battery life. That DualShock battery life is trash. It's trash. Yeah. And you could tell me it's not, you're a liar. It's bad. It's real. Here's how bad it is. I literally have a second. I bought, usually if you get a console, you want to get 2 controllers, right? Just in case somebody comes over and wants to play. It's just like a standard. I literally don't play my PlayStation 4 multiplayer games like that. I have it solely for the Sony exclusive games. So that's what I use to play it on. when I was playing Horizon, I was swapping controllers because I was getting so pissed that the controllers were dying. I would just put one down, pick up the other, charge that one while I'm playing this one. By the time this one died, like, I was like, this is garbage, man. Like, the battery life sucks. That Pro controller for the Switch lasted like majority of Zelda, like without charging. I'm like, this is fucking crazy. Like when they advertise like 30 hours of battery life, they're really not kidding. Like the battery life in that thing is insane. But I remember my brother-in-law got the Wii U Pro controller, and the dumbest thing in the world was to charge it. You had to charge it like through the Wii U. He tried plugging it into like other adapters to plug into the wall, and it wouldn't charge. And then also, it had to charge while the system's on. So like, it was just a weird thing, but I think that's the only reason why Nintendo got the giant battery life on it. Cause they're like, you have to charge it under these certain circumstances, but once you had that thing fully charged, you didn't need to charge it for quite some time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like they did such a good job on that.
Those Pro controllers are just, and also the normal like Wii like classic controller was so good too. I mean, the only thing I hated about that controller was the fact you had to have it on like a life support hooked up to the Wii boat. You know, right? It's kind of like that weird dongle.
Yeah, speaking of the worst dongle in the world, a Wii remote. Like just like take the Wii remote and just like set it next to you on the couch, I guess, and you just have to play with the classic controller. So
you're sitting there playing it. It's like bouncing between your knees while you're playing the game. You know.
Yeah, nobody wants that. Nobody wants that hanging out. It's like your little limb that is left over. Like I'm still here. You have to have me in order for this to work. So that always happened. So obviously, like, did you like when you were playing games and stuff like that? Obviously, you had your friends and stuff. Did you have like? Did you ever have any siblings playing games with you or anything?
Yeah, I mean, my sister. I have an older sister, and we played games a lot. She was always like into it, but she wasn't as into it as I was.
Right.
It was like one of those things. Like they get that like when we first got a Nintendo, it was like a gift for the both of us. But I played it more than she did because she was like a teenager, and I was like 5. She was like, I don't know. She's 5 years older than me. So she was around like 10, 11. Like she wanted to go out to a skating rink. She wanted to go skating. I wanted to go to Blockbuster and rent a video game. So like it just gravitated more towards me and became more of my consoles at that point. And she still plays a little bit. Like she likes Animal Crossing and stuff like that. But yeah, I was definitely the gamer of the family other than my grandpa for sure.
I also think, though, that back then, especially if, they had to justify spending hundreds of dollars, it was a together gift. They were like, no, we can't just buy this $200 thing for one kid. Like, no, let's say it's for both of them. But then, obviously one kid played it far more than the other. Like, that always tends to happen. But then, I mean, some, like, my siblings would play Mario and stuff with me, but, like, they really didn't play much else. Like, they got to a point where, especially, I think the thing is, I was the oldest. Well, my other sisters are a couple years apart from me. 5-year difference. Yeah, that kind of would hinder some things as well. Because like you said, by the time you're into gaming and stuff, they're into like way other things. Like they're not into the same things you are. When the age gap is closer, it's a little bit easier. But when it's a big difference, that's where you, by the time you're into certain things, they're into like that next level of, exactly. She's into going to the skating rink. She's not sitting at home playing games. She's like, I want to go socialize with friends. Like,
I was like, I'm looking for the Triforce, and she's choreographing New Kids on the Block.
Exactly. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's just kind of, you're just into a different thing, especially like a 5-year difference. Like I imagine, like I tried thinking back now, 5 years ago, my kid was into different things. Like it's funny because like my son actually really wasn't, but his gaming tastes have completely changed from 5 years ago. Like completely different. But he's still into Nerf and Lego, so whatever. I mean, there's nothing wrong with Nerf or Lego, man. You could be an adult into that shit, so.
Oh yeah.
You're fine there.
It's an expensive hobby. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Legos. Holy shit.
Yeah, Legos get crazy, but you know what though? It's real. It's a vicious cycle because Lego knows there's a bunch of nerds out there who like really cool shit. Example, the Millennium Falcon that they have. There is a Millennium Falcon that's like their ultimate Millennium Falcon. It is $800.
Oh my god.
it's gorgeous. Like, I saw it at the Lego store and I was like, this is a work of art. And again, you're not going to get some kid who's getting an $800 Lego set, but that adult who loves Star Wars with all their heart is going to look at that and go, fuck. All right, here's $800. Lego's got them by the balls, dude, because they put that out there and you're like, dude, that thing is, again, you're not playing with it. That's one of those things you build and like keep on a shelf and just show off. Like, it's crazy. But yeah, I mean, again, though, they're starting to get to gamers now. There's like Lego Overwatch sets coming out. And I'm like, that's smart. You're going to get all those people that like games in it. And of course, when Lego Minecraft happened, I was like, this was a no-brainer. Because like, Minecraft is Legos. Like, I'm sorry, that's all.
Yeah. I remember they had like I think it was Lego that was doing the whole Halo thing. I remember that too.
Yeah, like they've had Mega Bloks. Like, well, here's the funny thing. Lego has had this big thing where they don't want guns. Okay? They don't want a minifigure holding a real gun. Now, granted, they've had Star Wars sets, which are like, kinda, blasters. I don't know if that's how they're justifying it or not, but like Mega Bloks has kind of picked up the slack where they're like, we'll have Call of Duty, we'll have Halo, we'll have Assassin's Creed. Like, they don't give a shit. Mega Bloks.
They're like the Sega. They're like the Sega of like building blocks.
Exactly. They're like, we're the edgy ones, man. We got Halo, we got Call of Duty, we got like, and yeah, that's a very good analogy. Like the Mega Bloks, the Sega of building blocks. There you go. That makes a lot of sense. That's actually very funny. That's really true. Because that's, again, they're going after all of those. So, but as you were getting older, obviously, you're playing games, you're progressing. Did you ever get into a point in time when you didn't play games as much?
I wouldn't say there was one point where I wasn't playing as much. Probably when I was around like, I want to say like, from like 15 to 17,
Shocker.
like 3 years. Yeah. When I was skateboarding a lot more.
Dude, we could get
a podcast
playing about skateboarding, I'm sure. God.
Yeah, I was skateboarding. I was, starting up bands. I was playing, because, I play bass. So I started like playing in bands and started doing that sort of thing. And, gaming became a little bit more of a back burner. It was just kind of like, I never stopped like completely. But it was just like, what do you want to do this weekend? Do you want to go to a skate park or do you want to play an RPG? And I'm like, I kind of want to go to a skate park.
Right. Did Tony Hawk make that happen?
Yes.
Yep. Me and you, we should have a support group. Like, Tony Hawk ruined our video game journey. Cause yeah, Tony Hawk 1 made me stop playing video games because all I wanted to do was skateboard. For like 4 years, I didn't play like hardly any video games. I was just so into skateboarding. It was insane. It was all of high school, basically. Like, yeah, all of high school. I basically skipped the whole, like, everybody's talking about getting PS2 and Xbox and all this stuff. And I'm just like, I don't care. Like, I just want to go skateboard. That's all I want to do.
You're like, do I want to get a new PS2 game or do I want to get some Speed Demon bearings so my wheels go faster,
Dude, I need to get some new trucks because my trucks are wrecked. Like, that $60 could go towards a game or it could go towards this. I was also that clown, like, and it was so embarrassing. Like, I would go, because I got a PS1 and that was like the last console, like, I was very much invested in. And I was that nerd that was going into like GameStop and like all these stores going, do you have Tony Hawk 3 for PS1? And they're like, what? Like,
oh God.
What are you talking about? Like,
did you play Tony Hawk 3 on PS1?
Yeah, and it's trash. It's really bad.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's so bad. I remember when Tony Hawk 3 came out, a buddy had just gotten a PS2 and he got Tony Hawk 3. And I was like, well, I got it on PS1. And I remember like just the comparison. It was just like, I felt like he got the good game and I got like generic soda. Right. Tony Hawk.
You got Coca-Cola and you got Big K soda. You're like, what is this shit?
Like, oh my God. It was so bad. And like video games was something that I would play if it was raining outside. Like my friends would come over and, we would skateboard, and if it was raining, then we would go inside and play like Tony Hawk and build skate parks. That's what we would do. Or play.
It sounds like me and you had the same childhood. Like, that's all I did, man. You get to a point. That's all you do.
A really good skateboarding game that I don't hear enough people talk about, but it was fucking amazing, was Thrasher Skate and Destroy.
I have a copy in the other room. Like,
oh my God,
just like complete everything. Because here's the thing. I've mentioned this before. Tony Hawk initially was a skateboarding game, right? And then it started getting to the point where it just got so ridiculous with like Steve-O on a mechanical bull chewing train. Like, it just got to the point where it's like, what the fuck are we doing right now? Or it got to the point where it was so unrealistic. It basically became like a high score game. It was just like, flip tricks, like just how big of a combo could you get? Thrasher was literally like a real skating game. Like, you could not do quadruple kickflips off flat. Like, you could do a kickflip. And if you jumped down something too big, you broke your board, and that was the end of that. Like, it was so cool. And of course, you had to run from the cops and avoid getting tased, which was hysterical. That game is so good. And yeah, you're right. Nobody gives a shit about it because it wasn't flashy, or you weren't jumping on power lines to grind and shit. Like, nobody gave it the respect it did. That's why when Skate came out, I was so happy. Because Skate is such it was like, that was what I wanted. I was like, as a skateboarder, I started getting to the point where Tony Hawk was getting way ridiculous. I was like, I'm over this. Like, you guys are just trying to do all this crazy shit, and it's not a skateboarding game anymore. It's just not. Like, I was like, I'm over it. And then I saw, like, literally when I saw Skate, I was like, this is it. This is a true skating game. And Skate 3, I still play to this day. Like, I still play it because it's amazing. It's such a good game. And I'll do exactly what I was doing back then skateboarding. I will literally go to one rail and just be like, I'm going to do every trick on this rail that I can. I'm trying to try all these tricks and just see what I can do.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I loved about Thrasher, man. It's like Tony Hawk, you would like go through a glass and do like 24 kickflips and land into a manual and like do like a 360 method before you would like grind on a car. Thrasher to be like, if you did a double kickflip down a flight of stairs, you'd give all your friends a high five. Like, dude, did you see that? Did you fucking see that?
Right? Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, grinding on a car. Yeah, that makes complete sense, right? No, like, you're right. Like, as a skateboarder, it became like when it was realistic. Like, that was the thing that got, but again, nobody gave a shit about Thrasher because you weren't grinding on power lines. But as a skateboarder, you're like, no, you guys don't get it. Like, Thrasher's actually the better skateboarding game because it's a skateboarding game. It's not a high score game.
Oh, it sucks that we never did get a sequel to it.
Right. I think the problem was like it came out and the people who skateboarded and played it, they were like, yes, this game's awesome. The mass market was like, what is this shit? Like, why is it so
slow and chunky?
Why is it so hard to do any tricks? Because real fast, fucking skateboarding's hard. Like, skateboarding's not easy. Sorry, people. You can't just stand on a board and do it. Like, I always hated when I go to a skate park and there'd be some kid there. It's like, can you do a 900? Like, bitch, what? Like, you realize that's hard to do, right? You realize that's like a very, very, very small amount of people in this world can attempt that and do it. Like, stop. Tony Hawk ruined little kids' minds because they just thought you could jump on a board and do a 360 flip without trying. And I'm like, you have no idea how long it takes to get to that point.
Then you did have that middle ground game. I don't know if you played this one. It was like a mixture of Thrasher and Tony Hawk, but Grind Sessions. Did you ever play that one?
I remember that one, but I think it was, like I said, it was kind of that, like, it was trying to be Tony Hawk, but it wasn't. But it was like, it was just weird. I remember Grind Sessions, Like, that one was, again, I was so into skateboarding that all I did was, if it was a skateboarding game, I was like, yes, I'll play this. But, like, I literally didn't play anything else. Like, I was just too busy skateboarding.
I mean, if you got a skateboarding game on a demo disc, you were good.
It. You were so happy. Yeah. So happy. Like, Tony Hawk 1, I'm sorry, that hangar level is amazing. And then every other level after that is like, this is okay. But the hangar level's still the best. But Tony Hawk 2, School 2, dude.
Yeah.
That's such a good level.
See, I remember the Tony Hawk 2 demo disc that I got was from actually PlayStation Undergrounds. I got that demo disc, and it came with I think it was School 2. I think it came with that level, and it came with the building, the park builder.
Right.
And I was just like, dude, I'm set. You know, me and my friends would just build skate parks and just keep playing the game, and we could only play as like Tony Hawk, I believe.
Right.
But we didn't care. I was like, we just sit there and play that forever. And then I believe my Tony Hawk demo I got was actually from a Pizza Hut demo.
Yes, it was, because Pizza Hut had a demo disc.
Yep, it was from that. It had, I believe, dude, that was a pretty badass demo disc.
Yes, it really was like one of the best ones. I think it had like that, Cool Borders, Metal Gear, like a Tekken game. Like there were so many good games on that Pizza Hut demo disc.
Yeah. So I believe it had Final Fantasy VIII on it. So I think my friends and I were just like, holy shit, Final Fantasy VIII's on it. Yeah,
actually, yeah. So right here, here it was. It was, I'm looking, I just Google searched Pizza Hut demo disc and found it. Ape Escape, Tony Hawk Pro Skater, Cool Borders 4, Final Fantasy VIII, and Crash Team Racing.
Oh my gosh.
That's a solid lineup, dude. That's a solid demo disc. Like, and then, there was another one here. Gran Turismo, Metal Gear Solid, Medieval, Crash Warped, and Tomb Raider 3. God damn, dude. Pizza Hut.
And those are all classics.
Yeah, those are all good games. And they were on a Pizza Hut demo disc. Oh my God. Dude, that's kind of how it was though. But yeah, for like a good 4 years, I didn't play anything besides skateboarding video games because I didn't care. Like I really did not care about video games. Skateboarding was my life. And then as soon as I started working at a game store, I went back and I was like, dude, I missed a lot of really good games. So that's when I went full back.
Here's the question. What year did you start working at the game store?
It was 2004. I literally graduated high school.
Holy shit, dude. Because that's when I started working at Babbage's. I started working at Babbage's right when the PlayStation 3, 360, and Wii were launching.
Yeah, that was like 2005, 2006, around that time. Yeah, I worked the 360 launch. I had left the game store the year the Wii and the PS3 were coming out. Like I left the game store around that time, but I worked during like Metal Gear 3, San Andreas, Halo 2, and then launch of the 360. But like I said, I literally left in 2000. It had to be 2006. I left 2006, like summer of 2006. So that was the summer before Wii and PS3 launched.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I used to love working those midnight releases, man.
Back when midnight releases were something, man. Like they were fun, except for I had some. We'll have to save that for another podcast. But like horror stories of a midnight launch, because I have some that are real bad.
Oh God! Yeah. The only midnight releases that I used to hate was because I was never into Madden or anything.
I was
like
say Madden was so
But what was good about those midnight releases is like most of the guys were like kind of embarrassed that they were gamers, so they didn't really want to stick around. Right. They'd pick up the game and like run back to their car and like drive away, you know?
They would make themselves non-gamers by showing up in a football jersey. They would be like, "Oh no, man, I'm not here for Madden, bro. I'm not here. Video games, whatever, man. I'm trying to get a lady. Look, I'm wearing my Bears jersey. God, I don't play Madden. Yeah, you got Madden 5? Yeah, I got Madden 2005. All right, cool. Let's go, man. Let's go." Like that's what happened. Exactly. Like they would show up, dude. I remember Madden launches would bring out the biggest diverse group of people. I will tell you that. Whereas like Halo or any of the JRPG launches, you could tell they were gamers. you could tell.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but no, like the Madden midnight launches, they were fun. But it's funny because like again, you'd get so many different people that you don't normally see. Like there was just people that would show up for the Madden launch, and you're like, I've never seen you walk into the store a day in my life, and you're here for Madden and Madden only. Like you'd walk in, buy Madden, and leave. You would never come back to buy another game. But Madden's always one of those games that's like that. It has that, it's like you get those people that buy Call of Duty and Madden every year, and that's it. You know what I mean? They don't give a shit about games otherwise.
You're like, holy shit, it's my uptight math teacher from high school.
You're here from Madden? That's crazy. Yeah, you'd get people, like I said, that you didn't realize like played games, but again, Madden was like their one game a year, or then it turned into Call of Duty, where like Call of Duty was their one game a year. And I don't even know what it is now. Like obviously I'm into gaming and all that, but like the one game that like a ton of people play is Fortnite, but you don't have to go anywhere to get that. Like that's just free. Like, dude, think about this now. Back in the game store days, right? How big were they on attach rate and memberships and like all this shit? Now a person can buy a PlayStation 4 and leave. And you can't say that shit like, don't you want a game? Like, no, Fortnite's free. And also I don't have to pay for PlayStation Plus with Fortnite. So I'm going to buy your box and leave. And that's all they ever need to play Fortnite.
Yeah. And I mean, and if they're like a digital gamer, they never have to go back to a store ever again.
Yeah, you're done.
Buy off PSN. You're done.
Yeah, that's why like I go into I feel so bad now when I go to GameStop and they're just like, I'm like, you look like you're on your last legs. Like you're selling more gaming merchandise now than you are like consoles, because now you look at their game section and it's getting, I'm not gonna say smaller, but like, dude, those stores used to be wall to wall games and that's it. Like not a single thing now it's like in the store.
Now you got a wall of like coffee cups and like merch
t-shirts.
It makes me sad because it makes me think of like the days before Suncoast went out. You know, like Suncoast, I don't know if you had that over there, but it was like a movie store.
Right.
I used to always go there to buy my anime. And then it got to the point where, you know, the internet happened, Best Buy happened, Suncoast was starting to just become overpriced because they weren't getting with the times.
Right.
So
they were charging like way too much for a DVD, like than everybody else was. Yeah.
Yeah, so it became like a merch store. Like you went there to buy movie swag.
Right.
Instead of like buying a movie. And that's what GameStop's turning into. And it's like, you know, some people give a lot of people shit at GameStop. You know, they're like, oh, they're always asking me for like the GameStop card or blah, blah, blah.
Whatever. Business.
Exactly. I'm like, dude, like what many people don't understand about GameStop, unless you've worked there, is like these folks, they work on commission, but their commission isn't commission. It's their hours. They're working for their hours.
Yeah, basically they're working to prove themselves that they're actually worth being on that schedule for those times. Like, yeah. When I go into games, like I sympathize because again, I worked at a store that didn't push the cards, but they did, and push pre-orders because they did. So I mean, like I get it, like I understand, but also too, like when I go into a store and like some of the attitude of some of the employees, I'm like, God, you guys can tell you guys are like scared to death that one day GameStop's just gonna be like, we're done.
Yeah. It's only a matter of time.
Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, like I said, now like with Xbox and now it's not heavily, let's say heavily rumored. The guy who said it is like a really big insider into Xbox. So he said a bunch of rumors that were actually true that Microsoft next year is releasing a discless Xbox One. And I'm like, I completely see it. Like I really do, because digital is so big now that they could do that. Like they could just straight go, we'll cut this thing down cheaper. There's no disk drive in it. It just plays digital games. And again, if you're a Fortnite kid, you don't care. Like you really don't. Like I read sometimes like people are like, I don't even remember the last time I used my disk drive in my Xbox. I'm like, or some people are like, my disk drive broke, so technically I have a diskless Xbox One already. I'm like, I guess like that you can do that now, man. You don't have to have a disc at all anymore, man. It's kind of crazy.
I've become so much more of a digital gamer over the years, like just for the price and convenience.
Yeah.
And to be honest, like when it comes to the big three, like the PS4, Switch, and Xbox One, like Xbox One is such an economy-friendly system.
Oh yeah.
Because you think about it, they come out with this discless Xbox One. You buy for your kid. You can get them Xbox Live and Game Pass, and you're done.
Set. And be so set.
Yeah, the kid can just play whatever the hell he wants. It's like, okay, you can play 3 generations of Xbox games and even new releases. Because like Sea of Thieves was like on Game Pass.
Yeah, Forza Horizon 4, which is like Game of the Year contender for racing, is on Game Pass.
Yeah, so I mean, it's like boom.
Yeah, like, and that's what I'm saying. When I heard they were releasing a discless Xbox One, or that was the rumor, and I was like, oh, for them it makes complete sense, dude. Like Game Pass alone, yeah, you're good. Like you don't have to worry about anything if you have Game Pass. You have so much shit to play. Not to mention, like, especially if you haven't checked out Xbox, like all the Gears games are on there. Every Halo game is on there. Like, you can check out everything that they've had to offer from their bigger franchises and stuff. And not to mention other companies, like Fallout 4 was on there for the longest time. And I'm like, dude, yeah, if you have Game Pass, you're set, man. So I would have loved to have a Game Pass back then, but unfortunately times weren't around then to have the Game Pass situation. So
yeah,
it's all good.
The closest we had was like GameFly.
Right. Which, by the way, I tried GameFly twice. Fuck them. They suck. They never had the games ever, like, ever in stock. Like, even if I try to like get a game right away, they always were like out of stock, out of availability, waiting this many. I'm like, whatever. I had it twice and canceled it twice. And I had Netflix back when it was just discs before the streaming service. So I've had Netflix for a very, very long time. I've had Netflix since like, I think 2005 or 6 when I stopped working at the game store because it was connected to Hollywood Video. So I would rent movies from them for free. I got Netflix because I could rent movies from them. But yeah, I tried GameFly. It never really worked out, unfortunately. So what are your gaming habits like today?
Well,
you mentioned kind of how like you work and you bring your Switch and you're able to play games, but are you still, obviously I'm assuming, adult job responsibilities? You're obviously not playing as much games.
I find myself, because I do a lot of reviews, so I get a lot of like review copies and stuff like that, which honestly helps a lot with spending.
Sure.
So like when I'm not reviewing a game and I buy a game, like I play that game so freaking long.
Right.
It gets to the point where my friends are like, dude, are you still playing that game?
Right.
And it's just like, well, it's because, I've been reviewing all these games. I'm just finally getting back to, like, say, Yakuza Kiwami 2. I bought that game day one, and I'm still, like, on chapter 10. It's just like, just playing the hell out of it. So now it's like, I find myself, especially in the last, like, 2 years, I find myself, like, when I get a game, I, like, just play the ever-loving shit out of it. And then finally, like, if I like it a whole lot, I'll hold on to it. If not, I end up trading it in and putting it towards something else. Like, I've become that kind of gamer now. When I used to, about, I want to say like 3 years ago, I was like a major collector and I had like 32 consoles and had like 1,000 games. Now I just have, my retroness. I just have my Pi. I just have a retro Pi and I'm good to go.
Right.
Yeah,
there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, like I said, I am in that point where the only thing I collect games for things I like, right? Halo, Gears, and Kingdom Hearts. Weird fucking 3 games, but whatever. Those are the 3 games that like I'll hang on to all that stuff, but everything else I'm very much like, get the game, play it, beat it, get rid of it, done. I don't want to hang on to shit. Because the likelihood of me going back and playing this game ever again is slim to none. So I'm like, why am I hanging on to it? So,
exactly.
That's the only thing that's like kept me from going completely digital. Is because like of me being able to trade things in. So that's like the only thing holding me up. So we'll wrap things up with the last question I want to ask. What is the worst game you've ever bought with your own money?
Last Action Hero on the Super Nintendo.
Oh my God.
God, that was such a horrible game.
Like, was the level of disappointment just so real when you started playing it? You're just like, God, this game sucks.
Yeah, it was like the moment I played it, I was like, I made a mistake. That game, and also I have a follow-up, and that was Vampire Hunter D on the PlayStation 1.
Oh, why do I remember that game being trash? Like, I remember the name, but I don't remember the gameplay of it, but I'm assuming it's garbage.
Yeah, because, I was like, okay, cool. I grew up watching Vampire Hunter D. I'm a big Castlevania fan.
Right.
I was like, okay, well, this is going to be like Castlevania in 3D. It's pretty much the same premises. This is going to be awesome. And I remember I got home from school, got my money, went to Walmart, bought the game, came home, started playing it. And my friend had bought it too. And I remember me and him calling each other on the phone. And we're like on the phone while we're playing the game. And I'm like, how do you get through this part? He's like, I don't know. I'm still in the trial era. Like, I don't know what I'm doing right now. I'm like, dude, this game's horrible.
Such a bummer.
Like back in the day when you'd call your friends and like have like the conversation walkthroughs. Yep.
That happens. Dude, Last Action Hero. I remember like those license games back then were either really cool or just complete garbage because they didn't give a shit if they had quality behind the name. It was a name of a movie that you might go see in the theaters and then go, oh, there's a game, I'm going to buy it. And then you get completely screwed when you realize the game is trash. So
yeah, the last one I want to mention too, and I only mention this because of the irony of it, was me playing hooky when I was a kid, acting like I was sick because I wanted to rent a copy of Mario's Missing.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's a bad one to like fake sick for.
Yeah,
a real bad one.
The game was always like sold out at Blockbuster. Like every time I went in there, it was always gone. So I had this plan. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to act like I'm sick. I'm going to have my mom take me to Blockbuster. I'm going to rent this game and I'm going to play it while everyone else is at school. And I can come back to school and be like, hey, I played this. It was freaking awesome. Little did I know that it was a freaking educational game.
Yeah,
I'm
basically.
like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, you got burned on that one pretty bad.
Yeah, pretty bad.
That happens. If people want to check you out on the internet, where would they go find all that?
Well, I have a YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/Xander Skullion. And, I cover reviews. I talk about gaming memories. And that's one of the reasons why I was like, man, I cannot wait to be on this podcast, because that's kind of what got me inspired to make videos to begin with, was just talking about memories. So I'm like a freaking addicted to nostalgia. That, and also my podcast is also on YouTube. It's Excess Gaming Podcast. And then I have another podcast I just started called Blast Podcasting. That's more of a nerd culture podcast. I mean, our second episode was about Star Wars. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And of course, Twitter, Excess Gaming on Twitter.
And of course, if people want to check out any of the things that he does, I will have links in the show notes for all of the above, so you can check out all the cool things he does. Hopefully, if you're a fan of this show, I'm assuming you'll be a fan of his content as well. Dude, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for sharing all your stories with me, and I'm sure we'll talk about skateboarding later.
Oh, yeah, definitely, man.
All right, thanks, man. All right, and again, thank you, Xander, for being on the show. If you guys want to check him out on Twitter and see all of his content, go ahead and check him out on Twitter at XS Gaming Podcast. Of course, he has the link for his YouTube in there, so you can check out many, many, many of the videos that he posts there. So feel free to check him out, subscribe to all of the things he does, help support him as well. If you guys want to be on the show just like he was, go ahead and send me a tweet at MitchPower1116 on Twitter, or at the podcast Twitter page, which is at GUG Podcast on Twitter. Of course, we also have a Facebook group. Just search up Growing Up Gaming there. You could also go to Spotify. You can go to YouTube and check out the show in video form if you'd like to, in case your work is weird and you can access YouTube and you want to listen in the background. Whatever the case is, just search up GUG Podcast on YouTube. Again, thank you guys so much for returning each and every week. Please leave me some reviews, ratings on iTunes, subscriptions on YouTube. Let me know what I'm doing well and what I'm not doing well, and I'll continue to make this show better and better each and every week. So thank you guys for listening. I really appreciate it, and I'll catch you guys next week with another new episode. See ya.